Well, the Christmas tree is up, so now it's story time. The Adventures of Ryder and Mr. Self. It was time for the annual canned food drive at Ryder's middle school, which meant Ryder and the rest of his classmates were sort of puzzled. They act like we know what a canned food drive is, one kid said. I thought food came from a window at a place like McDonald's. I thought we were the I in Christmas and the us in Hanukkahs, another kid said. That's at least what our elementary teachers, who loved us very, very much, said. I don't get these teachers. It's like they want our cans in order to sell them. Ryder wanted to help clear the confusion, but he had never had a conversation with Mr. Self about a canned food drive. The cans must have something to do with those learning targets we have to write down every day, Ryder said to Mr. Self. Do you think they want us to smear food on the whiteboard in appreciation for all their work for writing things like I can describe life in the 1890s, or I can name my 8 parts of speech, or I can be quiet the whole period because my teacher is having a very, very bad day? Remember, Mr. Self said, some of the greatest art has come from a Campbell's soup can. Of course, Ryder exclaimed. I need to hunt for food to can. Ryder and Mr. Self left the school to go hunting for food to can. First things first, Ryder said. I need some cans. Why don't we bicycle our way to recycling fun, Mr. Self said. Ryder didn't get it, so Mr. Self explained that they should go across town to the recycling center and get as many aluminum cans as their arms could carry. Hey kid, why aren't you in school? An officer said when she spotted Ryder with his arms full of cans. Oh, Madam Police Officer, ma'am, Mr. Self and I are going to use these cans to capture food and then drive them wherever our teachers tell us to so that they're happy and they quit yelling at us. You said something about a Mr. Self? You know him, esteemed Madame Law Enforcer? Of course, he always let me color with a blue crayon. Well, good luck, kid. Be careful. Some of those cans have tobacco juice in them. Great. I can just slap a label on them and we'll have canned tobacco juice already ready. You know, Ava meat always tastes better fresh than in a can. Ryder wanted to take the officer's advice, but he wasn't sure where he could find fresh Ava meat. Come to think of it, Ryder wasn't sure where he could find food at all to can, except for the school kitchen. Since he knew the school was behind the can drive, he figured he'd be fine borrowing food from the kitchen. That afternoon, Ryder canned Italian dunkers, taco salad, chili dogs, and grit. He separated grits into individual serving sizes, 1 grit per can. As usual, the teachers were completely unappreciative of his work the following day. Ryder, you can't put cola cans into the canned food drive basket, especially when it's going in the box of my rival school. Not that I actually went to that school's shirt that I'm wearing because I wasn't smart enough to get in. But your honorable teacherness, Ryder said. Mr. Self and I canned all this food yesterday. Ryder, for the love of Steel City Pops, there is no Mr. Self, and empty these cans. Of course, the cans weren't empty, and the teachers found that out very quickly. Ryder was assigned in-school detention, where he had to take the food out of the cans and put them back into the kitchen. While he was there, he thought about redeeming himself by finding the location for Canned Food Drive. A street, he figured, was downtown someplace fancy, probably near a Main Street or an MLK Boulevard. Ryder figured he and Mr. Self could go on a road trip to Canned Food Drive, take a selfie underneath the street sign, maybe stop and eat at the Canned Food Diner, get a t-shirt that says I drove on Canned Food Drive, and then return to school as heroes, eventually intending to retire and tell future generations about driving on Canned Food Drive before it became an over-commercialized highway. Instead, Ryder was called up to the school office. They needed help. The hobo rooftop dwellers had smelled Ryder's grit in a can and were plunging off the rooftops. Ryder knew he would be thankful when the stress of the holiday based on overeating was all over.